Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Roshana Asif Sheikh, Director, Startup Grind Sialkot. We're having this virtual event once again. We started having physical events again, but unfortunately, since COVID wave 2 has hit Pakistan, so we have again switched to virtual events. However, as I always say, कि virtual events का अपना फायदा है, we are not restricted by boundaries or geographical locations anymore. So उसी को चलते चलते we can have variety of speakers, we can have variety of audience. So it really works out well as well. Yes, networking के लिहाज से देखा जाए तो हमारे पास opportunities जब physical events होती हैं तो उसमें better networking हो सकती है. Nonetheless, अभी भी अगर हम लोग बात करें तो we have this chat option, we have the rooms option as well that we will eventually use, but थोड़ी बहुत networking अभी भी हो सकती है. Anyway, moving on, today we have a very special guest with us, Meenah Tariq. She's currently a partner at Karavan Venture Capital. It's a VC firm that invests in early stage Pakistani startups. She's also been the head of strategy and accelerator at Invest to Innovate and has supported numerous startups since 2015. Actually, that is 6 years, right? That's a long time. Moreover, she has helped women entrepreneurs as well through various platforms like World Bank, and we'll get on to the details of that later. We have questions regarding that as well. So let's welcome Ms. Meenah. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Fireside Chat event. How are you?
It is absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be chatting to you today.
Yes, likewise, absolutely. So, Meenah, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, your qualification and career, etc.?
Sure. So, I have done my undergrad, my BBA from FAST Islamabad back in the day. And then I worked for a little bit in Pakistan. I was working at Phone. And then I left for my master's. So I did my MBA in entrepreneurship and strategy from Babson College. I was a Fulbright scholar. I got a scholarship. I went there, spent some time there. Came back to Pakistan, and I started working with Invest to Innovate, which is a startup accelerator, and we can get more into what accelerators, etc., are later on. I led the accelerator program for about 3.5, 4 years. And then I moved on from there. I joined the World Bank as a consultant, designing out their project called the Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative. Worked over the years with the USAID SMEA project, with other USAID, UNDP, ILO projects. And I joined Caravan as a partner on the VC side, and I've been investing in startups. So Caravan has seen 8 investments so far, so that's been an interesting journey. I have started numerous businesses of my own since I was very, very young. Since I was about 6, 7 years old is when I started making and selling things. Yeah. And over
That's
the years,
great.
Over the years, I've done lots of businesses, started lots of things, shut down lots of things, had a lot of great experiences along the way.
Right. So very interestingly, since you've told me that you are an entrepreneur yourself as well. You've started a lot of different companies. So what led you to come to this side of the industry, like helping other startups rather than running your own other things?
Yeah. So when I was coming back from the US, of course, when you do your MBA, you have an MBA is a generalist degree, right? Like, so you have a lot of things open to you. You have a lot of options open to you, and you have to figure out what you want to do. And I wanted to come back and work somewhere, not at every point in your life is it okay for you to be starting something absolutely new. Your risk profile changes as you grow. So at that time, I wanted to have a job, have some sort of stability that comes from having a job. And I was lucky to meet Kulsoom Lakhani, who's the CEO of I2I, while I was in the US. And we started talking, and then she contacted me about the position that they had. And then, I gave my interviews. I got hired before I graduated. So I graduated and I, finished my degree in the US, came to Pakistan, and the very next day was the first day of my job. And that was really, before that, all my experiences with entrepreneurship had been experiences of my own self trying to start and run things. When I joined I2I was when I had to kind of take a back seat and more figure out how to help the entrepreneurs that were a part of the I2I portfolio. And there's just been no looking back. Honestly, Rashami, all the work that I've done over the past few years, and frankly, probably all the work that I continue to do over the course of my life, stems from a very, very strong belief in entrepreneurship. I have personally seen entrepreneurship change people's lives, financial stability, whether it is for a family or it is for a woman, being financially independent. I have seen that give people the right to make their own decisions. I've seen that give people the right to improve their own lives. I have seen that give people the right to improve the societies and the communities they live in. So I really believe in entrepreneurship as a social and economic force. And so I believe that the work that I've been doing and the work that people around me have been doing is worthwhile that way. So that's why I do what I do.
Nice. So your own companies, could you when when you were into having your own startups and all, could you just name a few things that you started doing at that time?
Sure. One of the first ones when I was 14 years old, I started a henna business called Henna Art. I used to do mehndi myself, and I saw some people doing it, and I thought, I can do that. I was 14 years old. When you're 14, they were doing it for 1,500 rupees. So when you're 14, even that amount of money seems very big. So I was like, well, I can earn that much money. I can do this too. And I started that business when I was 14. I ran it for about 10 years until I left for the US.
Wow.
And even while I was in the US, I did some henna art stuff there. Yeah. So I ran that for a very long time. It worked out really well for me. I earned a lot of money from it. I earned money from it, and I bought a camera. And this was back in the day when DSLRs were really new. You remember that time when DSLRs were all the
Yeah,
rage?
yeah, absolutely. What a thing, huge thing.
Yeah, yeah. When becoming a photographer was as easy as buying a DSLR. So I bought a DSLR and I became
True.
a photographer. I started doing event photography. I started doing photography for people. I did event management. So all the things that you can probably guess, I've done. I've started a clothing business. I started an event management business. So all those things I've done. The very recent one that my husband and I actually started is a gift giving business. Helping people send gifts to their loved ones. So we're constantly still doing something. We're constantly testing things out, and that's the fun of it.
That's true. I mean, it's it just gives you, when you start something new, especially, it just brings a lot of energy and a lot of passion. And, the first days are so exciting. You have this energy, this boiling energy in yourself all the time. It's actually very, very interesting. So,
Yeah, it's also
tell
very
me a little,
stressful, I think, but
sorry?
yeah, it's also really stressful. But
Absolutely.
if you're the kind of person that is energized by that high stress, tight timelines, got to do everything yourself.
Challenges, if you like challenges, ये करना है, हो जाएगा, करते हैं वाला scene.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
Right. So tell me a little bit about your experience at I2I. How was it? How did you have startups there, etc.?
So sorry, before I go on to answer that, a logistical question. Can we switch between English and Urdu? Is that okay? Because I've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
speaking to
absolutely. It's a bilingual thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I2I was really great. I2I was a very small team, very scrappy, very hungry. You've got to do everything yourself. You're wearing multiple hats at the same time. आप फोटोकॉपियां भी करा रहे हैं, आप फाइलें भी बना रहे हैं, आप इन्वेस्टर्स से भी मिल रहे हैं, आप एडवाइस भी दे रहे हैं. सो यू डूइंग एवरीथिंग. आप ग्राफिक्स भी बना रहे हैं ऑनलाइन, आप चीजें ऑर्डर भी कर रहे हैं, आप मतलब वी वर जस्ट डूइंग एवरीथिंग एट द सेम टाइम. हम फॉर द मोस्ट पार्ट हम 3 लोगों की टीम रही है. कुछ लोग आए, कुछ लोग गए, पर ज्यादातर टाइम पे 3 लोगों की टीम रही. And you had to earn money for the company, and you had to create as much value as possible for your startup. Because see, Roshani, when you're advising startups, bad advice can kill the company and essentially
True.
kill the dreams of everybody who's done in that company. So
Absolutely.
anybody who's working with startups has to really feel that responsibility, because one small bad advice, one small thing that you just throw out, कोई आपसे सवाल पूछता है कि ये क्या कर रहे हो और आप कुछ भी कह देते हो क्योंकि आपको नहीं पता और आप टाइम नहीं लगाना चाहते सोचने के लिए या किसी और से पूछने के लिए, या आप किसी को ये नहीं शो करना चाहते कि आपको सही जवाब नहीं पता, तो आप अपनी तरफ से कुछ भी बोल देते हो, राइट? एंड देर डन, देर डूम्ड. अगर वो आपकी एडवाइस फॉलो कर लें तो देर डन. So it was very high pressure. It was really, really high pressure. And I think I put in a lot of my heart into it along with my time because, again, I really felt that the work that I was doing was so worthwhile because it was impacting so many people, right? So I think that was why I really enjoyed my time there. Like 3.5, 4 years were just, we loved it. We really enjoyed it. And of course, the
That's
startups
really
were, I think I'm still in love with all of those startups. They're still my friends. Those companies are still my babies. I can still probably pitch all of those companies to you, you know?
nice. You're right. I mean, I love that, this journey was so exciting for you because if you don't love what you're doing, so, there is no, I mean, you cannot even put in your effort and hard work into it if you're not enjoying what you're doing. So I really appreciate that. Also, like, share some startups that you've worked upon while being in I2I.
Lots of them. So I don't know if you've
Share
heard
the
of
like the
Ghar Par.
success stories. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have.
Yeah, Ghar Par was part of the I2I portfolio.
Acha.
Sehat Kahani was part of the I2I portfolio. Polly and Other Stories. There's a Karachi business called Secret Stash. There's an edtech called Queno. Mocha Online from Islamabad. Lots of them. And again, like all of them are now really good friends as well. So it's been so nice to just be a part of their journey even today.
That's great. Yeah, these are actually huge names now, mashallah, no doubt about that. So, like, you mentioned you guys were mostly three people doing a lot of work, all of the work, in fact. Like, I mean, personally asking because I'm facing this issue with my company as well. So how, like, is it too difficult? I mean, we're still thinking all the time that is it the right time to hire a resource? Because hota ye hai कि, for example, if there are three people who are actually handling everything, बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं जो कि you miss out on stuff. For example, strategic analysis नहीं हो पाता है time पे, या फिर you can't like look into this the other parts of the dealing with small expenses or perhaps clients etc या फिर खुद काम कर रहे हो तो उस केस में like how do you like what do you suggest कि what is the right time for people to start hiring resources and all.
Yeah. So, as per my experience, sooner rather than later. So, I have this mentor. His name is Usman Sheikh, and he's this really great guy. I'll tell you more about him later. But Usman, I think, always says that one of the first few people that you hire should actually be an HR person because you really need them to then decide, when they need to hire more people, who do they need to hire, and do all of the HR and even, taking your business from being a small enterprise to actually like a company that operates like a professional company, right? It has those structures and those policies in place. So my own learning also from my time at I2I and from the other work that I've done is actually hire faster. So if you feel like there is that the people that are in your team are at capacity, you should probably try to bring on someone ASAP because, like you said, what you lose out on is the strategic analysis. What you lose out on is the ability to zoom out. मैं इसको हमेशा कहती हूँ, there are two things that you're doing, right? A, you're working in your company. जो आप day to day काम कर रहे होते हो ना, वो आप अपनी company के अंदर काम कर रहे होते हो.
True.
But you also need to work on your company. You need to be able to take yourself out, look at your company from outside and from afar, and really be able to analyze and see and chart and decide, right? So you have to work in your company and have to work on your company. तो जब आप बहुत थोड़ी सी छोटी सी टीम होते हो और अंदर तेज तेज काम कर रहे हो तो ये भी कर रहे हो वो भी कर रहे हो तो यहाँ से ये पूरा करते हो वहां से वो पूरा करते हो तो फिर वर्किंग ऑन योर कंपनी का आपके पास टाइम नहीं रहता. So अगर
Very
आप
true.
if you are a founder and you can even get an intern on board to take on some of the tasks that you do on a daily basis and that intern would be able to do, right? उसको दे दें और उसको करने दें. आपका टेबल आपका प्लेट थोड़ा सा खाली हो जाए ताकि आप उसके ऊपर अपनी स्ट्रैटेजी के पीसेस रख सकें जिसपे आपको काम करना ज्यादा जरूरी है, वो इंटर्न नहीं कर सकता.
True, very true. Because your day-to-day tasks, so then they can essentially be managed by other people as well. But strategically analyzing your company, thinking about the future, deciding upon the strategies and plans of it for it, not an outsider can do it. Yeah, but internally obviously can't do it. So that's the right way to go if you're lucky enough to find a good intern. That, but like hiring the resources, finding the proper resources is too difficult. It is too difficult.
बिल्कुल.
So yeah, all right. So how and why did you start your journey at Caravan? And tell us a little bit about about Caravan as well.
Sure. So while I was still at I2I, मैं स्टार्टअप्स की साइड से काम कर रही थी. तो जब आप स्टार्टअप की साइड पे होते हो ना, तो उनका सारा गुस्सा, उनके सारा अपसेट होना, उनकी सारी सारी सैडनेस, वो भी आपका पार्ट होती है. कभी किसी स्टार्टअप को कोई इन्वेस्टर बुरी तरह ट्रीट करता है, तो आप उस इन्वेस्टर पे उतना ही गुस्से होते हो. किसी स्टार्टअप को कुछ कहते हैं, आप बिल्कुल, आपकी वो सारी फीलिंग्स आपकी होती है. और फ्रैंकली जो इन्वेस्टर का पर्सपेक्टिव है ना वो कभी सीखा था, ना वो कभी सुना था, ना वो कभी किया था. मगर ये मेरा ख्याल था उस टाइम पर कि इन्वेस्टर्स और स्टार्टअप्स के दरमियान में ना गैप है, क्योंकि जो लोग इन्वेस्टर्स हैं ना, उनमें से ज्यादातर लोग इस साइड पर कभी बैठे ही नहीं है, और उनमें से ज्यादातर लोग एक्चुअली ने स्टार्टअप्स के साथ काम भी नहीं किया हुआ था बहुत ज्यादा. हम तो इतने सालों से तब पाकिस्तान में स्टार्टअप्स के साथ काम कर रहे थे. A lot of the VCs that were coming in were not people who had been working with startups before. There were people, अभी भी आज आप VCs को analyze करें, most of them are people who come from the outside and become investors, right? So my ideology and my theory at that time was that they are in need of people who can tell them what the startup side is, so that they can also make better decisions, right?
Nice.
So that was kind of where I started when I left I2I.
Nice.
And there were two places where I thought I could add value. One of them was on the VC side, and the second one was on the development side, because I also saw that all of these big development organizations, ये लोग projects तो बनाते हैं, मगर इनके project और again जो on ground reality होती है startup की, there's a big gap. And they also need people.
Sorry, which
who are
organization? Like, could you exemplify a few? Sorry for cutting you. Could you exemplify a few organizations per se?
Development sector organization?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so, like for example, I started working with the World Bank. After I quit I2I, I started working with the World Bank. So DFID does projects, DFID does projects, the Bill and Melinda
Ground
Gates
reality
Foundation.
for दूर होते, right?
I think a lot of them are. They're getting better now. But back when, this is a few years ago, उस वक्त तो entrepreneurship बहुत नई थी इन सारी organizations के लिए. All of these organizations were at that time very used to working in a very NGO-y way. Now they're way more in touch because they have also learned, they have also had a learning curve, right? उस वक्त जब मैंने I2I छोड़ा था a few years ago, this is almost 3 years ago at this point, I felt like there was still a gap. And I thought, okay, they need people who've been on the ground now to help. For example, I'll give you an example. Development sector organizations उस टाइम पर अगर कोई ग्रांट देने लगती थी ना, तो उनकी जो रिपोर्टिंग रिक्वायरमेंट होती थी वो इतनी मुश्किल होती थी कि कोई स्टार्टअप वो रिपोर्टिंग रिक्वायरमेट पूरी नहीं कर सकता था. कोई एनजीओ तो कर सकता था, because NGOs are used to doing that sort of stuff. But when you're running a small business, you're not really sitting around writing tons of reports and putting things together all the time. And the reporting requirement for the dev sector organizations used to be बहुत ही लंबी reports, an extra ये, an extra वो. Matlab, it was very complicated. So in my head, that those were the two places. The way I rationalize is my career is, where can I add value? So those were the two places I saw that I could add value, and those were the two places that I started working at. So I joined the World Bank as a consultant because they had a big project that they were designing and they wanted me to come on board to help design it, the Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative. And then my partners at Caravan, Jawad and Ahmad, are both in the Middle East. And while they've been visiting Pakistan and getting up to speed in Pakistan, they've been brought up in the Middle East, and so they also had a gap where they felt like they didn't really, or they needed somebody on ground who maybe had deeper understanding also. So they took me on board. They were really, really lovely about it. It's been a pleasure working with them. And yeah, that's kind of how I joined both of these places.
That is great. Actually, पता है क्यों? Actually, that happens that the people who are investing, they don't really know the ground realities that the startups are going through, and it holds true as for the development organizations as well. I totally and completely agree, and I'm really glad that you have actually been doing something about that. That people have started doing something to bridge that gap, because उसकी वजह से जिसको कहते हैं ना कि synchronization कोई थी ही नहीं, just because of that. You wanted to add something?
I do want to say that when I came on the VC side, I realized that maybe it was less that they didn't understand the startup side, and more that when on investors, there's a whole other set of pressures and limitations. VCs के ऊपर जिस किस्म की रिटर्न रिक्वायरमेंट होती है ना, वो इतनी ज्यादा एक्सट्रीम होती है कि that's why they come in with the sort of mindset that they do come in with, right? वो startups को लग रहा होता है कि वो unfair हो रहे हैं, but actually for a VC to actually make money is very difficult, and they're in this business to make money at the end of the day, right? So they're not in this business to give money for free. So I think actually what I've realized coming on the VC side is कि ये वाली side भी उतनी आसान या उतनी simple नहीं है जितनी मुझे लग रही है। इनके अपने इतने limitations हैं कि इस साइड से किसी को पैसे देना मुश्किल हो जाता है। एक्चुअली राइटिंग समवन अ चेक इज, आई एक्चुअली थिंक इट्स एज हार्ड एज रेजिंग मनी। Every single deal that a VC does takes so much effort and so much time and so much research कि मतलब just deploying capital is very difficult. So I think the gap is actually on both sides. Now I realize that startups. Now I realize that if I had to advise Meenah from 4 years ago or 5 years ago when she was getting upset and angry for her startups and saying ये क्यों नहीं हो रहा और वो पैसे क्यों नहीं इनको मिल रहे and why are they unable to raise, I would have sat that Meenah down and explained to her what the VC side of things is, so that she also realizes what the gaps are on the startup side. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's
Absolutely,
part of
absolutely. Because when you're working on something, then only you realize कि उसमें क्या-क्या difficulties आ सकती हैं, what could be the shortcomings and all. So that completely makes sense. So, so you said that VCs have very difficult requirements. Could you please shed some light upon that as well? Like, what are their requirements from the startups?
Sure. So, सबसे पहले तो again, what every startup needs to understand is what I just said. A VC is in this business to make money. They're not a bank ATM where you just go and withdraw cash, right? They're an organization. A venture capital fund is an organization that has taken money from other people and said, "Give me your money. I will invest it, and I will give you a return on this money." Okay? So it's not a VC's own money that they're investing. It's not. That's why their decision is not as free as you would want it to be, right? They're answerable to someone, and those people are the people whose money it actually is. उनको हम कहते हैं LPs या limited partners. LPs बहुत सारे अमीर लोग और अमीर फैमिलीज होती हैं जिनसे VCs जाके पैसे जमा करते हैं और अपना एक फंड बनाते हैं, एक पूल बनाते हैं। अब VC ने उस पैसे को मल्टीप्लाई करना होता है, और यूजुअली एक VC फंड से जो रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेशन होती है वो अबाउट 10x होती है। सो यू वांट टू मल्टीप्लाई योर टोटल फंड साइज बाय 10 एट द एंड ऑफ 7 to 10 years। तो आपके पास 7 से 10 साल है, आपने इन पैसों को 10 गुना मल्टीप्लाई करके वापस करना है अपने LPs को। That's when you will be counted as a successful VC fund. Now, a VC or anybody basically also knows that 9 out of 10 startups will fail. This is whether, whatever, generally, globally, 9 out of 10 startups will fail or 8 out of 10 startups will fail. तो अगर मैंने 10 स्टार्टअप्स को पैसे देने हैं ना अपने फंड में से, तो मुझे पता है कि उनमें से 9 ने मेरे पैसे डुबोने। आई एम नेवर गोना सी दैट मनी बैक, राइट? I still need 10x on my fund. I still need to multiply my total fund size by 10 at the end of 7 or 10 years. And I know 9 ने पैसे डुबोने हैं। So मैंने ये करना है कि मैंने 10 की 10 ऐसी कंपनीज ढूंढनी है जो 10 की 10 पोटेंशियल रखती हो मेरे टोटल फंड का 10x रिटर्न मुझे दे। Right? That is the real limitation. That is so, I mean, and in Pakistan, when the ecosystem is new, when in Pakistan, where in terms of ease of doing business, we're really bad, getting anything done in Pakistan is hard. You still have corruption. You still have, parchi systems and all of that. And all of those impact every small business, right?
Obviously.
So much infrastructural, so many infrastructural gaps are still there. And all of that impacts small businesses. So when I'm giving money to a Pakistani startup, it becomes even more difficult because I understand all the risks that are associated with operating businesses in Pakistan. So again, having all of that in mind now, I have to find 10 ऐसी कंपनियां जो कि 10 के 10 ये पोटेंशियल रखती हो कि या तो अगर वो सक्सीड कर गई और वो फेल ना हुई तो वो मुझे 10x मेरा फंड साइज पे दे सके। So yeah, I mean, when you're doing your due diligence on a startup, that's why you're looking for startups जिनका potential बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा हो, उनकी market size बहुत बड़ी हो, उनकी एग्जीक्यूशन कैपेबिलिटीज A1 हो, जितनी आप रिस्क को, VC का काम होता है किसी भी डील में रिस्क को कम से कम करने की कोशिश करना, ऐसी डील ढूंढना जिसमें रिस्क कम है और रिटर्न प्रोफाइल सबसे ज्यादा है, इसको हम कहते हैं asymmetric risk profile. So, I mean, that's why we do a very tough due diligence on every deal.
Right. So you just mentioned that, you see the capabilities apart from the idea itself and apart from the market size. Like, what I'm trying to ask is, apart from the market size and the idea itself, what are the other things that a VC looks at before investing into a startup?
So the very first thing we look at is actually not the market size or the idea, but the founder itself, and the founder and the team that they built. I always like to, I heard it somewhere and I always quote it, the horse gets your attention, but it's the jockey that gets your money, right? You're actually betting on the person who's driving the horse, because without that person, the race is lost, right? So it's the same way when you talk about a startup. कोई भी स्टार्टअप, उसको आप जितने मर्जी पैसे दे दें, आप सारा कुछ ठीक कर रहे हो ना, मगर उसके फाउंडर को सडनली रैंडमली निकाल दें, तो the
company falls
chances
apart.
you're basically done for, right? So what we're really looking for is whether the founder is passionate, whether the founder really believes in what they're trying to solve, whether the founder has the skill set and or the technical knowledge that is required to make this a success. फिर एडिशनल पॉइंट्स मिलते हैं अगर वो फाउंडर फॉर एग्जांपल उसकी फैमिली उसी इंडस्ट्री से, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आपकी फैमिली गारमेंट्स की इंडस्ट्री से बिलोंग करती हो पहले, और आप गारमेंट्स से रिलेटेड कोई स्टार्टअप शुरू करना चाहोगी, तो मुझे पता होगा कि अच्छा इसकी तो फैमिली स्किल सेट और कैपेबिलिटीज है, शी हैज अ वाइडर नेटवर्क एज वेल. अगर आपकी फैमिली ट्रकिंग से बिलोंग करती है और आप ट्रकिंग में कोई टेक स्टार्टअप खोल रही हो, तो अगेन यू गेट एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट्स फॉर थिंग्स लाइक दैट. Then who are the other people you've surrounded yourself with? Do you have co-founders? What do your co-founders bring on board? Have you built a good company? Are you showing potential to hire good people, right? Who have your first few hires been? So it actually really idea शायद वही idea होगा जिस पे 10 लोग काम कर रहे हैं. मार्केट साइज तो वही है ना, एक आइडिया है, उसकी मार्केट साइज तो वही है. अब वो 10 के 10 लोग काम कर रहे हैं और वो आपको पिच कर रहे हैं, आप उनमें से किसको पैसे दोगे? आप उनमें से उसको पैसे दोगे जिस फाउंडर के साथ आप सबसे ज्यादा जेल करोगे.
Got it. See, that's what I thought. Right. All right. Could you please explain the difference between the stages of an incubator and that of an accelerator?
Sure. So an incubator is what you go to when you have an idea. So you've not built anything yet. आपको आज कोई idea आया है, आप उस पर थोड़ा सा सोचते हो, शायद आप थोड़ा बहुत उस पर कुछ थोड़ी बहुत research करते हो, उसको थोड़ा सा develop करते हो, but अभी वो idea ये आपने कुछ शुरू नहीं किया. You take it to an incubator, or you can take it to an incubator, and the incubator will then take you into their program. उनका शायद 3 महीने का, 4 महीने का, 6 महीने का program होगा, and they'll help you develop a business from that idea. उस idea से वो business तक लेकर जाएंगे आपको. शायद अगर प्रोडक्ट बनाना है तो वो प्रोडक्ट बनाने तक लेकर जाएं, वो आपको ऐसे लोगों से कनेक्ट कराएंगे जो प्रोडक्ट बनवाने में आपकी हेल्प करेंगे, वो मेंटोर से कनेक्ट कराएंगे, ऑल ऑफ दैट स्टफ हैपेंस. देन यू एग्जिट द इंक्यूबेटर, आप ग्रेजुएट हो जाते हैं वहां से, आप अपने बिजनेस पे काम करते रहते हैं, आप जो भी चीज आपने बना लिया आप उसको बेचना शुरू करते हैं, 1 सेल करते हैं, 5 करते हैं, 10 करते हैं, 15 करते हैं, आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आपकी लर्निंग होती है, 2-3 दफा आप सबको चेंज करते हैं, ऑल ऑफ दैट. और आपने अब वो जो अंडे से जो चूजा निकला था ना इंक्यूबेटर में, उस चूजे को आपने थोड़ा सा बड़ा कर लिया, ठीक है, वो आपका बेबी बिजनेस है. अब आपने आगे सीखना है कि इसको मजीद ग्रो कैसे करना है, आपने स्केल कैसे करना है. दैट्स व्हेन यू गो टू एन एक्सेलरेटर प्रोग्राम. An accelerator program will help connect you to investors. An accelerator program will get you investment ready. An accelerator program will connect you to technical mentors and other mentors of all sorts. Essentially anything and everything that you need to grow and scale your business. So that's right. The difference.
That's the difference, right? Perfect. All right. So you also worked on Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative with the World Bank. Can you just tell me that how did it help the women in Pakistan?
Sure. So it is still an ongoing program. The Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative by the World Bank is actually a World Bank global program. So it's happening in multiple countries at the same time. And they gave us the choice to either work on the challenge of access to finance or access to market. So we decided to work on the challenge of access to finance. Pakistan mein abhi bhi, out of the total deals that happen, there's a very small percentage of money that actually goes to women-led businesses. So we took up that challenge and tried to figure out, okay, how can we try and increase that amount? How can we try and get women entrepreneurs more ready to get investment? And for this, we did a lot of research. We traveled across Pakistan, spoke to stakeholders, spoke to investors, intermediary organizations, mentors, startups. कि जी मसला क्या है? So दो तीन चीजें हमने आइडेंटिफाई की जिन पे ये प्रोग्राम काम कर रहा है. इस प्रोग्राम का पहला स्टेप था कुछ डेटा गैदर करना और पीसेस हमने इन्वेस्ट इनोवेट के साथ एक्चुअली मिलके वर्ल्ड बैंक ने एक रिपोर्ट लॉन्च की, द स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम रिपोर्ट. क्योंकि बात यह है कि पाकिस्तान का जो इकोसिस्टम है ना, जितने कम उसके अराउंड नंबर्स हैं, जितना वो ओपेक है बाहर से देखने वालों के लिए, उतना ही वो स्केरी होता है कि वो अपने पैसे लेकर पाकिस्तान के अंदर आए. So if you want more and more investment to come into Pakistan, you need to make data more available. You need to have these data products, etc. available. So we worked on that. Then the second thing we did was we realized कि जो intermediary organizations हैं, incubators or accelerators. Sorry, just give me 1 minute. I'm just
Sure. Take your time. No worries.
sorry. Hello.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Yeah, sorry, I have a baby, so you just got
that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
duties.
Yeah, so I was thinking हमने realize किया कि जो intermediary organizations हैं, आपके incubators और accelerators, उनके जो managers हैं ना, उनमें से ज्यादातर को खुद फंड रेजिंग प्रोसेस के बारे में बहुत कम इंफॉर्मेशन है. और ये कोई उनकी फॉल्ट नहीं है, क्योंकि अगेन जैसे मैं बता रही हूँ कि मैं जब एक्सेलरेटर रन करी थी तो मैंने कभी कोई पैसे, ना मैं इन्वेस्टर थी, ना मैंने एज ए स्टार्टअप कभी कोई फंड रेज किया था. उस टाइम तो पाकिस्तान में भी बहुत कम स्टार्टअप से फंड रेज किया था, राइट? सो द अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ फंड रेजिंग लैंग्वेज इवन इज मिसिंग, राइट? इन्वेस्टिंग जो पूरा वैल्यू चेन है वो कैसे काम करता है, इक्विटी कैसे डिसाइड होती है कि कितनी होनी चाहिए, स्टार्टअप की वैल्यूएशन कैसे होती है. सो अगर आपके पास रुशाने कोई स्टार्टअप आए और वो पूछे जी मुझे कोई $10,000 दे रहा है, मैं कितनी इक्विटी दूं, तो आप उस स्टार्टअप को कैसे एडवाइस करें जब तक कि आपको खुद वैल्यूएशन करने के तरीके ना आते हो, जब तक आपको खुद जस्टिफिकेशंस और नॉलेज ना हो, राइट? और बात ये कि पाकिस्तान इज स्टिल अ वेरी न्यू इकोसिस्टम. ये कोई इतना पुराना इकोसिस्टम तो है नहीं. यूनिवर्सिटी में ऐसी कोई चीज आपको नहीं पढ़ाई जाती, बिजनेस स्कूल में आपको ऐसी कोई चीज नहीं पढ़ाई जाती. सो हमने रियलाइज किया कि इंटरमीडिएरीज को ट्रेनिंग की जरूरत है, कि उनको पहले हम इन्वेस्टमेंट रेडीनेस सिखाएं, बताएं, ताकि आगे जब वो एडवाइस दें, वो स्टार्टअप्स को जब बताएं. आपने रुशाना, आई एम प्रीटी श्योर, बहुत सारी स्टोरी सुनी होंगी ऑफ स्टार्टअप्स गेटिंग एक्सप्लॉइटेड. 10,000, 30,000, $50,000 के पीछे 60% कंपनी दे दी. आपने एक दफा अपनी 60% कंपनी दे दी ना, तो आप अपनी कंपनी को खत्म समझें, क्योंकि उसके बाद आपको कोई भी स्मार्ट इन्वेस्टर पैसे नहीं देगा, और आपकी अपनी क्या इंसेंटिव रह जाएगी कीप ऑन वर्किंग इन द कंपनी, राइट? सो बिकॉज दो स्टार्टअप्स डिड नॉट रियलाइज कि वो कितनी बड़ी मिस्टेक कर रहे हैं, एंड बिकॉज पीपल अराउंड देम डिड नॉट गिव देम गुड एडवाइस, क्योंकि उनको भी नहीं पता था, सो मेनी स्टार्टअप्स गेट एक्सप्लॉइटेड. So anyway, we created the first of its kind training program, जिसमें across Pakistan से intermediaries, incubators और accelerators ने participate किया. We ran 2 training cycles around this, particularly around investment readiness from the intermediary angle. इसके बाद the second step was training 300 women entrepreneurs. Those trainings are still ongoing now, actually. We've done almost 200 women have already been trained. And again, those trainings are around investment readiness. So if you have a business, what can you do to get ready to raise investment? What do you need to know? Frankly, बहुत सारी startups को पता ही नहीं होता कि due diligence किस चिड़िया का नाम है. होती क्या है due diligence? Due diligence इतना scary सा word लगता है, मगर उसमें होता क्या है? And what can I do to pass due diligence, right? What are the steps that I need to take to make sure that I will pass any investor's due diligence? So this is what we were teaching those women, and still are. And then the next component is actually selecting 30 women-led businesses which are at a slightly later stage and now are in the process of investment raising, and guiding them very directly, coaching. Basically, that's a coaching program. So this is a training program, and the next step is a coaching program कि customize और personalized तरीके से step by step उनको investment तक कैसे पहुंचाया जाए. And then the last piece of this program is actually trying to get more women into investing. I am one of maybe 5 women investors in Pakistan today. And that's a problem, because when you don't have women on the other side of the table, that's one of the reasons, and globally this is what they've seen, is that's one of the reasons that less money flows towards women entrepreneurs. When you have more and more women investors, all of this will become normalized to a higher degree. And we're hoping, at least that's a theory, we're hoping that there'll be more investment in women-led companies as well. So that's the final piece where we're going to be targeting high net worth women who want to become angel investors and training them in how to become angel investors, and how to make deals, and guiding them through that process.
Great. I have a few quick questions regarding this whole program. It's very interesting, but so first thing, जो आप लोग का quota होता है, like where are you selecting the females from? Because personally speaking, if you talk about smaller cities, for example, I belong from Sialkot, and getting women to work, getting women to just go out of the houses, let alone start their own thing, is super difficult. I mean, women here have conveyance issues, permission issues, so many issues. Like, honestly, this is sad, but it happens, right? So, what areas are you targeting mostly? And B, if you are actually targeting smaller areas, how are you getting women to participate in this program? And what is when people start this program with you, what is the rate that almost that amount of women actually graduate as well without leaving it in the middle?
Yeah, so I think we've had a pretty high graduation rate at this point. About 80 to 90% people have been graduating from the program, and it's not a very long program, right? It's a week-long training, so it's not a very high commitment. It's not a very high commitment to make. But you're absolutely right. Getting women is hard for us. अभी तक इतना मुश्किल इसलिए नहीं हुआ क्योंकि we're not targeting people who are not already on. So we are targeting people who are already entrepreneurs. We're targeting people who already have existing running businesses. So there's less convincing that we have to do, because they're usually people who are already in the weeds and realize already that they need help getting to the next step. Also, Roshane, it's interesting क्योंकि जब आप किसी से पूछे ना कि आपका बिजनेस ग्रो क्यों नहीं कर रहा, तो वो आमतौर पे कहते हैं कि पैसों की वजह से नहीं कर रहा, लैक ऑफ फाइनेंस की वजह से नहीं कर रहा. तो इसलिए जो एक्सेस टू फाइनेंस वाला इशू है ना, वो ऐसी दुखती रग है कि उसकी वजह से लोग खुद आते हैं. शायद अगर ये ट्रेनिंग किसी और चीज पे फोकस्ड होती तो थोड़ा ज्यादा मुश्किल होता लोगों को पुल करना, मगर क्योंकि ये एक्सेस टू फाइनेंस की ट्रेनिंग है और लोग रियलाइज कर रहे होते हैं कि हमें ग्रो करने के लिए फाइनेंसिंग चाहिए, और वो ये भी रियलाइज कर रहे होते हैं कि हमें इन्वेस्टमेंट रेडीनेस के बारे में कुछ भी नहीं पता. So it's an easier sell that way. So इसलिए for this program, we haven't really had a big challenge. But I completely understand what you're saying. The work that I was doing with USAID's SMIA project, we trained. I traveled to tier 2, tier 3 cities. I traveled all across Pakistan, and we were training women who had new businesses, or women who wanted to be entrepreneurs, and it was hard. And the challenges that these women and women in small cities face, it is very hard to realize or understand from a place of privilege until you actually are in the room with them and you actually have that conversation and you try to tell them something, and then they tell you that this is not the reality of my life. Meenah, what are you talking about? And that's when it hits you. So I completely understand what you're saying.
Right, but this is something amazing. I mean, I'm so glad that women are actually taking this training program and actually graduating as well. Yes, it's a week-long process, but still, I mean, this is pretty good. Right. So, in light of COVID-19, how do you think that the startup ecosystem will change? What are the areas that startups need to focus on?
So I think in light of COVID-19, एक तो ये कि we've seen unprecedented movement towards online. Technology adoption rate एकदम बहुत तेज हो गया.
True.
Even older people who were previously not using technology, or not as comfortable, started to come on board. आपके young लोग तो वैसे भी were faster with technology adoption. It became even faster. हम में से ज्यादातर ने कभी शायद नहीं groceries online deliver कराई थी, and then it became the norm to start getting everything delivered online. बहुत सारे लोग even cash on delivery करते हुए डरते थे, online order करते हुए डरते थे. पिछले कुछ महीने में आई थिंक हमने अब तक हर चीज ही ऑनलाइन ऑर्डर करके देखी है. दवाइयां भी मंगवा ली हैं, किताबें भी मंगवा ली हैं, कपड़े भी मंगवा लिए हैं, हर चीज मंगवा ली है. सो and the good thing is, especially when you talk about women entrepreneurs or talk about people who are living in small cities, yeah, even further out, right? Online gives you access to markets, even if you don't have physical access to markets. So
True.
if you can learn to do that well, you can do anything at all. You can become anything at all. When you talk about selling anything online, आपको रेंट की फिक्र करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती, क्योंकि ऑनलाइन फ्री है. उधर आपको दुकान खोलना आपके लिए मुफ्त है, फेसबुक पे दुकान खोलना, इंस्टाग्राम पे दुकान खोलना आपके लिए मुफ्त है, राइट? ना आपको रेंट की रिक्वायरमेंट है, ना आपको बहुत ज्यादा लोग हायर करने की रिक्वायरमेंट है. और आप अब, क्योंकि ड्यूरिंग कोविड सीओडी बिजनेसेस बहुत सारे खुल गए, लॉजिस्टिकल सर्विसेज बिजनेसेस बहुत सारी खुल गई. तो ये वाले सारे मसले भी, अच्छा, लोगों ने फिनटेक सॉल्यूशंस यूज करना शुरू कर दिए. आपके इजी पैसा, जैज कैश की एडॉप्शन एकदम बहुत हाई हो गई. जो लोग पहले नहीं भी करते थे, दे फील मोर कंफर्टेबल. लोग बैंक से ट्रांसफर करने में बहुत ज्यादा कंफर्टेबल हो गए. तो आपका एक्सेस टू फाइनेंस, एक्सेस टू मार्केट्स वाला इश्यू जो है ना, वो बहुत सिंप्लीफाई हो गया पोस्ट कोविड. एंड दैट गिव्स राइज टू सो मेनी अपॉर्चुनिटीज नाउ. So I think if you're anybody who's listening, who's thinking about doing a business, if it is anything that's technology enabled, if it is something that you can do online, you should just start to test it out and see what the response is like, and just keep on testing, keep on changing until you find product market fit.
But usme, I mean, I totally agree that, I mean, if you have something related to the internet, there's a good opportunity, right? But with that also, like the purchasing power of people has gone down. A. B. What is the scenario of investment these days in light of Corona once again?
So investments, it's a mix. It's not a simple answer. In some ways, अगर आप देखें तो पिछले साल कोविड बहुत हाई टोटल इन्वेस्टमेंट अमाउंट्स सामने आ रही हैं. अभी तक वो कैलकुलेशंस चल रही हैं, मगर इट हैज डेफिनेटली सरपास्ड 2020 की अमाउंट, हैज डेफिनेटली क्रॉस 2019 की अमाउंट.
Wow.
अभी 2021 में जनवरी खत्म नहीं हुआ, एंड वी आर ऑलरेडी सीइंग a startup recently raised $6.5 million का round. So we're already seeing mega rounds being raised. We do not believe that investments will go down in any way in 2021. This is going to continue to go up. It all depends on how you're placing yourself. It depends on what kind of industry you're in. अच्छा, हमारा ख्याल था शायद ट्रैवल बिजनेसेस जो हैं, कोविड से इम्पैक्ट होंगे तो वो पैसे नहीं रेज करेंगे. पिछले साल रूमी ने पैसे रेज किए, आई थिंक फाइंड माई एडवेंचर ने पैसे रेज किए, आई थिंक. So you've had travel businesses also raise money, even though travel and logistics was maybe harder hit, right?
Yeah.
But nothing of that sort happened. So last year, the total amount raised was larger than 2019. We're expecting that 2021 is going to be even greater. So पैसे की कमी नहीं है, and also बाहर के बड़े funds, international funds, are constantly looking at Pakistan. And they've been calling people, diaspora से जो बाहर लोग रह रहे हैं, expats जो रह रहे हैं, they want to become angel investors. So there is a lot of money that is moving into Pakistan actually. So, you have to position yourself in a way that you are well placed to receive it.
Nice, very nice. That's actually brilliant. I mean, we still have investments coming. That's great. So what do you think are the few mistakes that account for startups' failures? I mean, since you actually mentioned that, 9 out of 10 startups fail. So, I mean, is there a pattern, or like, what are the core reasons you think?
So far, we've literally seen everything under the sun. Okay? And that's why this is such a high risk thing, right? That's why even investing as a venture capital investor is high risk, high reward, because there is an infinite number of reasons that a startup can fail. A startup can fail because they didn't really have product market fit before they raised money, and they just leaked all of that money into the wrong the wrong strategy that they took. Strategic decision making नहीं हुई होती है, strategy सोची नहीं होती और बस किए जा रहे होते हैं एक साइकिल में बहुत सारे लोग. बुरे को फाउंडर्स या बुरे लोगों से पैसे ले लेते हैं. ये एक्चुअली हमने बड़ा कॉमनली देखा है कि बैड एंजल्स से, बुरे इन्वेस्टर्स से पैसे ले लेते हैं, और जैसे मैंने पहले बताया $50,000 के पीछे 60% ऑफ द कंपनी दे दी, इस तरह की चीजें की, एंड में आपको कंपनी बंद करनी पड़ जाती है. फाउंडर्स की आपस में कॉन्वर्सेशन नहीं हुई होती, हर चीज ऑन पेपर नहीं हुई होती, डिसाइड नहीं हुआ होता किसके कितने शेयर्स होंगे, क्लियर चीजें नहीं हुई होती, बाद में फाउंडर्स के आपस में इशू होते हैं और उसकी वजह से उनको कंपनी बंद करनी पड़ जाती है. तो हमने ये इंटरनल कंबस्शन तो बहुत ज्यादा देखी है. फाउंडर रिस्क एक्चुअली काफी हमने हाई देखा है ओवरऑल. इसके अलावा लाइक आई सेड, प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट इज अ बिग वन, कि आपने अब एंड प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट की वजह से किसी को फेल होना, एक्चुअली किसी भी रीजन की वजह से फेल होना इज नॉट रियली बैड, like I said, everybody knows 9 out of 10 startups will fail. We also know that जब आपकी एक कंपनी फेल होती है ना, तो there's a very high probability that you will start a second company and then you start a third company. तो दूसरी, even globally, दूसरी तीसरी बिजनेस पे जाके सक्सेसफुल होने के चांसेस जो है वो एक्चुअली आपके ज्यादा बढ़ते जाते हैं. सो रीजंस बहुत सारे हो सकते हैं, मगर उनमें से किसी से भी घबराना नहीं है, किसी से भी परेशान नहीं होना, और जो है उससे लर्निंग्स लेकर आगे वो करना है. और मैंने इतने बिजनेसेस देखे हैं जो पिवट कर जाते हैं, वो एक चीज पैसे भी रेज कर लेते हैं, वो पैसे लगा भी देते हैं, और फिर वो रियलाइज करते हैं कि हमारा ख्याल था कि ये लोग खरीदेंगे और लोग नहीं खरीदते. दैट्स एक्चुअली अनदर बिग मिस्टेक दैट पीपल मेक. दे फिक्सेट ऑन द प्रोडक्ट सो मच, they keep not launching, they keep not taking it to the end customer and just asking कि भैया आप खरीदेंगे भी कि नहीं, और वो सारी एफर्ट, सारी एनर्जी, सारा टाइम उस प्रोडक्ट पे लगाते जाते हैं. Sorry, one last one that I want to mention is actually raising money too late. आपने अगर पैसे रेज करने हैं ना, तो आपको फिगर आउट करना है शुरू में कि आपको किस पॉइंट पर जाके पैसे रेज करना शुरू करने हैं, एंड दैट पॉइंट शुड बी ideally 6 months before you run out of money. Because if you leave it too late and you become more and more desperate, there's a higher chance of you getting exploited or not being able to raise and having to shut down. So that's another thing that startups should keep in mind.
Right, very true. I mean, all the points you've listed, very true. I also think, like, there's just some kind of lack of direction for the startups as well, since they've not had experience, any prior experience of starting their own thing. They were first timers, so you see, when they started the next time, they have learned from experience. But first time when they do it, obviously they don't have any direction, fixated on the product, or we about the strategic analysis nahi kiya time pe, etc., not knowing where the company is going, maybe. So all of those reasons. So my question here is that, I mean, there are so many, when you, for example, you go into an incubator, there are so many mentors, and they actually keep a check on you. They give you evaluation, etc., and etc. So these few points, okay, have mostly ज़्यादातर startups fail होने की वजह होते हैं. For example, founders risk हो गया, या anything like of that sort that you mentioned. Most of the startups make the mistakes. So why are they not dealt by, or people like, why do mentors not work on it beforehand to prevent that actually?
I think they do to a certain extent. अब देखें, फाउंडर्स रिस्क तो, अगर आप मेरे पास आई हैं, मैं मेंटोर हूं ना, और आप लोग 3 को फाउंडर्स हैं ऑलरेडी, और मुझे आपसे मिलके पता लग रहा है कि आप तीनों में से एक को फाउंडर बिल्कुल बेकार है, ठीक है, तो मैं आपको कि कैसे समझाऊंगी? यू कम टू मी ऑलरेडी विद अ कंपनी. एज अ मेंटोर इट्स वेरी हार्ड फॉर मी टू टेल यू आपका एक को फाउंडर बिल्कुल बेकार है. सो जो फाउंडर रिस्क होता है ना, वो एज एन इन्वेस्टर तो हम एनालाइज कर. अच्छा, बड़ी दफा फाउंडर्स बहन भाई होते हैं या हस्बैंड वाइफ होते हैं, राइट? अब हस्बैंड वाइफ में इन्वेस्ट करना इज एक्चुअली प्रीटी रिस्की, क्योंकि अगर उनके रिलेशनशिप को कुछ हुआ तो आपकी कंपनी डूब गई, या उनके रिलेशनशिप को छोड़े उनकी फैमिली में कोई इशू हुआ तो वो दोनों इम्पैक्ट होंगे. वरना तो अगर मल्टीपल को फाउंडर्स हैं, किसी की एक ही फैमिली में कोई चैलेंज आता है, कोई इशू आता है, तो बाकी लोग संभाल लेते हैं. मगर अगर आपके को फाउंडर्स एक ही फैमिली से, तो आप एज अ मेंटोर इस रिस्क को मिटिगेट करना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल हो जाता है. एज एन इन्वेस्टर ऑफ कोर्स आप सोचते हो कि अच्छा आप उनको टेस्ट आउट करते हो, फिगर आउट करते हो कि डू यू वांट टू इन्वेस्ट इन देम और नॉट. बाकी जो है आई थिंक मेंटोर्स कोशिश कर रहे होते हैं एडवाइस करने की. हर मेंटोर की पर्सनालिटी डिफरेंट होती है. कुछ लोग आर मोर डायरेक्ट. आई थिंक आई एम यूजुअली वेरी वेरी ब्लंट, maybe to a painful level sometimes. But a lot of people are just nicer, so they don't want to maybe say a lot of things very directly. But good mentors will be very honest with you and often brutally honest.
Right. So before we head on to the questions, we have a few questions from others. Could you give one last tip, advice to the startups?
So I would say, don't worry about competition. And this is actually a conversation that I was having with my husband today, and he's also in the startup ecosystem. So we have these random conversations. And we've discussed this before. So many times, even before you start things, ना आप ये देख रहे होते हो कि अच्छा मुझे ये आइडिया तो आया है मगर वो किसी और ने पहले से किया हुआ है. बहुत दफा ये होता है. आप सर लोग कोई आइडिया आता है किसी से डिस्कस करते हैं, वो कहते हैं अच्छा ये आइडिया तो वो फलाने ने ऑलरेडी ये कर दिया, ये फलानी कंपनी का तुम्हें नहीं पता, वो तो यही कर रहे हैं ऑलरेडी. ये आप सर्च करते हो और आपको 4 कंपनी और मिल जाती हैं जो वही काम कर रही होती हैं जो आइडिया आपको आया होता है. आप कहते हैं यार अच्छा चलो ये तो आई एम टू लेट, वो मेरा आइडिया किसी और ने कर लिया. इट डजंट मैटर एट ऑल. Pakistan, our ecosystem is so new. There are no winners in pretty much any field except maybe mobile wallets, जिसमें easy पैसा और jazz cash बैठे हैं जिनके पास बहुत ज्यादा पैसा है. बाकी किसी भी फील्ड में हमारी 220 मिलियन की पॉपुलेशन है. बहुत बड़े हमारे टारगेट सेगमेंट ग्रुप्स जो हैं ओवरऑल किसी भी स्टार्टअप के लिए जो ग्रुपिंग आप करते हो बहुत बड़ी है. ठीक है. और अभी तक कोई नहीं ऐसा निकली, कोई ऐसी स्टार्टअप्स नहीं निकली जो कहें कि जी हमने 90% मार्केट पे कब्जा कर लिया. अगर किसी ने 90% मार्केट पे भी कब्जा कर लिया है तो वो रिमेनिंग 10% बैठे हुए हैं जिनके लिए आप कुछ कर सकते हैं. तो अगर आपके पास कोई आइडिया आए तो आप इस चीज से बिल्कुल मत घबराएं कि ये आइडिया तो किसी और ने कर लिया था. और जो आज हम डिस्कशन एक्चुअली माय हस्बैंड वाज टेलिंग मी अबाउट दिस, इट्स लाइक सो मेनी पीपल फिक्सेट ऑन कंपेटिटर्स. आप स्टार्ट कर देते हैं तो भी आप कंपेटिटर्स के बारे में सोचते हैं. आप जब एक चीज स्टार्ट करें तो आप कंपेटिटर्स के बारे में या कंपटीशन के बारे में उतनी फिक्र ना करें, आप कस्टमर के बारे में फिक्र करें. और आई टेंड टू फिक्सेट ऑन दिस लॉट, आई टेंड टू टॉक अबाउट इट ऑल द टाइम. कस्टमर पर्सोना डेवलप करना. आप जो भी चीज बना रहे हैं, जो भी चीज बेच रहे हैं, उसका आइडियल टारगेट कस्टमर कौन है, उसका एग्जैक्ट पर्सोना डिजाइन करना और फिर उसको दिमाग में रख के चीज बनाना, बिजनेस बनाना, हर चीज करना. आई थिंक दैट इज वेरी वेरी क्रिटिकल. सो दैट्स गोइंग टू बी माय पार्टिंग एडवाइस.
I think that is a great advice, especially about the customer persona, because when we launch something, we just launch it into the market, not thinking about what exactly is going to be the person who's going to be buying the product. So we are actually market segmentation bhi nahi karte hain. So in a way, we are just here and there, all over the place, not knowing what exactly and who exactly to target. So yeah, that is pretty much understandable. All right, so we have a question, and the question is that, could you explain if people can still join that World Bank training program, or when is it going to happen again?
So it is an ongoing process. I would advise them to reach out to Invest to Innovate, eye to eye. अगर उनकी वेबसाइट पे i2i की जाएं तो वहां पे भी उनको ईमेल एड्रेस वगैरह मिल जाएगा. उनको कांटेक्ट करें, कहीं जी हमारी ये कंपनी है और हम जो वर्ल्ड बैंक का V5 Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative WEFI प्रोग्राम है ये ज्वाइन करना चाहते हैं. तो
Right.
I will guide them.
And another question somewhat says that, just a moment, sorry, the question is right there. All right, what's the biggest hurdle you've faced while working with the startups?
I think entrepreneurs जो है ना वो by nature जो है वो जिद्दी होते हैं. And they are very in love with their solution. They're very in love with their businesses. एक तरह से ये अच्छा होता है एक entrepreneur की नेचर में, जो वो एक जिसको हम अगर बुरा कहना चाहो तो जिद्दी कहोगे, और अच्छा कहना चाहो तो कहोगे जी बड़ी परसिवेरेंस है, बड़ी जो है ना वो है. परसिवेरेंस अच्छी होती है क्योंकि आपके आगे बहुत हर्डल्स आने होते हैं जिनसे आपको गुजरना होता है. उसके लिए एक लेवल ऑफ जिद्दीपन चाहिए होता है कि नहीं मुझे पता है मैंने क्या करना है और ये मैंने ऐसे करना है, राइट. क्योंकि दुनिया आपको बार बार कहती है नहीं हो सकेगा, नहीं कर सकोगे, और आपको वो चाहिए होता है। मसला तब होता है जब जो लोग आपकी साइड पे हैं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल जब आप किसी एक्सेलरेटर प्रोग्राम में होते हो, या इवन एक इन्वेस्टर जो आपकी साइड पे है, अगर वो आपको कोई एडवाइस दे रहा है और आप उसको रेजिस्ट कर रहे हो, और उसको भी आप यही कह रहे हो कि नहीं मुझे पता है कि क्या, और वो उस लेवल तक कर रहे हो कि you're unable to absorb anything that's coming in from the outside. It's very important to take the advice that people give you with a pinch of salt, कि हाँ ठीक है ये उनकी एडवाइस है, उसके ऊपर सोचें, अगर आपको लगे कि वो अप्लाई होती है तो आप अप्लाई करें, नहीं होती तो मत करें। मगर द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट थिंग इज कि जब आई हैव टू गिव एडवाइस टू पीपल हु आर कंप्लीटली क्लोज्ड ऑफ, दे आइदर बिलीव दे नो एवरीथिंग, or they believe they know best, yeah, whatever the reason might be. So it becomes very difficult to have those conversations. And as an investor, you never invest in those people. You never invest in someone who's not coachable, yeah, someone who's not teachable, and somebody who's really defensive.
That is so true. I mean, it's so difficult to talk to those people. I mean, even if you say anything a little bit negative, not even negative, it's constructive criticism, I would say. And they would take it just so negatively and, just would get offensive as well, which is not a very good approach to lead the company because obviously, there are so many things that you are not able to see while you are so invested in one thing. You are unable to see the negativities or any other bad thing that might be going on. So, you need to always keep your open mind about that. Right. And second last question this is, could you please advise a good direction that the startups should follow to achieve their goals?
That's a
sort
really
of but anyways, it is an open-ended question, but any direction if you would like to give to a startup or anything.
I think just try to map out where you want to get, right? Like दो चीजें आपको पता होनी चाहिए, एक ये पता होनी चाहिए आप ये क्यों कर रहे हैं, what is your why, आप ये क्यों कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि बड़ी दफा ऐसा टाइम आता है जब बंदा खुद बैठ के सोचता है मैं ये क्यों कर रहा हूँ।
ये ऐसा हो नहीं सकता कि किसी एंटरप्रेन्योर की जिंदगी में ऐसा ना आया हो देखे मैंने शुरू ही क्यों किया,
मैंने ये क्यों किया। लोग लिटरली मैं लोगों को देखा कहते हैं यार मैंने अच्छी भली नौकरी छोड़ दी यार, मैंने ये करने के लिए, ये मैंने क्यों किया। और तो एक तो इस सवाल का आपके पास जवाब होना चाहिए कि ये आप क्यों कर रहे हैं, और दूसरा आपको ये कुछ अंदाजा होना चाहिए कि आप पहुंचना कहाँ चाहते हैं। और ये अगर आप ये अगर अर्ली फिगर आउट कर लेना कि आप पहुंचना कहाँ चाहते हैं, तो आपके लिए वो जर्नी बहुत ज्यादा आसान हो जाती है, बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपोनेंशियली आसान हो जाती है। इसको फिगर आउट करने का तरीका फॉर स्टार्टअप ये होता है कि आप इंटरनेशनली देखें कि जिस फील्ड में आप हैं, जिस टाइप की कंपनी आप रन कर रहे हैं, उस टाइप की कंपनियां कहाँ तक पहुंची हैं। आप आज ईयर 1 में हैं, तो ऐसी कंपनीज इंटरनेशनली जो सक्सेसफुल हुई हैं वो ईयर 10 में कहाँ पहुंची, ईयर 20 में कहाँ पहुंची। तो फिर आप मैप कर सकते हैं कि अच्छा जी मैं ये डायरेक्शन लेना चाहता हूँ, और हो सकता है मल्टीपल कंपनीज के लिए जो डिफरेंट डिफरेंट जगहों पे हो। तो आप डिसाइड करें कि आप अपना मैं हमेशा कहना चाहती हूँ आप डिसाइड कि आप गधे बनना चाहते हैं, खोते बनना चाहते हैं, घोड़े बनना चाहते हैं, क्या बनना चाहते हैं। आप सारा कुछ कंफ्यूज करके मिक्स करके जब बनने की कोशिश करते हैं ना, तो आप कुछ भी नहीं रहते। तो आपको फिगर आउट करना है कि आप कौन से जानवर कंपनी को बनाना चाहते हैं अपनी, और उसको अगर आप मैप कर लें अर्ली ऑन, तो आपकी जर्नी बहुत आसान है।
Very nice. Meenah, thank you so much. I mean, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, by the way, this was the end of the questions. I've really enjoyed this whole session. In fact, I've learned a lot of things myself as well, and I'm going to have a good conversation with my co-founders now. So, I mean, I'm sure it must be very, very, very helpful for others listening as well. Thank you so much for today's conversation. And thank you once again. And
I really enjoyed. Yeah, I really enjoyed speaking to you as well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No worries at all. Good luck for the future, and you have had a very good experience. I would just my message to you would be that keep helping startups, because the few pinpoints or pain points, let's just say, that you have come up with, especially there being a huge gap and not being able to bridge it till yet, they are so true. So, I mean, we really do need people to work on these things. Thank you so much once again. Have a great day, good night. Bye-bye. Take care.
Take care.